Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Batman Year One, very well-known comic, series of issues of the Batman comic back in the 1980s. But what I'm going to talk about today is the actual Batman Year One from roughly May 1939 to April of 1940, the first year of Batman stories that sets up the character. And I think it's kind of interesting to take a look at the kind of character they set up and the transition that the character makes over the course of those mini stories. Stories taking place in Detective Comics, starting with number 27, and ending in Batman number 1. So, without further ado, let's talk about Batman. So he begins in Detective number 27, May of 1939. He gets the cover of this issue. He won't be getting the cover of every issue of Detective for a little while. Eventually, he's going to be the big star. Now, writer Bill Finger, artist Bob Kane, and they're going to do a great deal of the writing and drawing on this series, although during this first year, Bill Finger is not going to do all of the writing, and Kane is going to have some assist on the art in a few issues, and we'll get to those helpers as we go through the issues. So we see the sort of tagline, the Batman, we see the shadow, etc. The case of the chemical syndicate. That's where Batman begins. Or does he? Because in really the first panel, the home of Commissioner Gordon, so Commissioner Gordon's there right off the bat, entertaining young socialite Bruce Wayne. And he says, well, this fellow they call the Batman puzzles me. So that means that there have been Batman adventures prior to the Chemical Syndicate. So this is going to be the first thing that we see Batman in, but it's not necessarily the first thing that Batman has done. There's going to be a much later issue involving a story from the future, where they dig up a time capsule from the New York World's Fair of 1939. And from that time capsule, people learn about the adventures of Batman and Robin. So that would even suggest that these stories are happening prior to 1939. When are they happening exactly? Who knows? Doesn't really matter. We're going to be talking, or this story is going to have to do with Apex Chemical Company, not Axis Chemical Company. Sorry, Jack. And by the way, you're not supposed to be here yet. And basically the story has to do with businessmen who are being found killed, murdered. And Batman gets in, having found out about this from Commissioner Gordon and gone to see a crime scene as Bruce Wayne, he gets involved. I like this particular image of Batman on the rooftop, the two crooks. The Batman kind of reminds me of the scene from the 89 Batman movie, up on the rooftop, and the two crooks seeing him and being shocked. So he starts tracking down clues. Here we actually see, kind of technically, the first Batmobile, although it's really just a car that he drives. He starts tracking down the clues, gets to a house where he discovers that a fella by the name of Stryker, is involved, and his assistant, his lab assistant Jennings as well. They make an attempt at killing Batman. He uses a wrench to get out of this trap. So we already have, first story, a death trap. We all know that's going to become a frequent trope of Batman, especially in the 66 TV. Here we have him socking out Jennings, who's taking a shot at him at the same time. He now explains the crime. Stryker wanted to be sole owner of Apex Chemical, but he was tired of waiting for his partners, and so he decided to knock them off, and Jennings was helping him. And he is then attacked by Stryker and punches him. He falls backwards into an acid tank, a little bit similar again to the 89 movie with the origin of the Joker. And so Batman has his first kill in his first adventure. And he's not really that sorry about it. A fitting end for his kind. Now, that being said, he doesn't set out to kill the man. He's attacked. He punches back. The guy dies as a result. So be it. That's life. Too bad. So we've got a few things. We got the Batman costume. Here we see him where they're revealing that it is in fact Bruce Wayne. We got the Batman costume. We've got death traps. We've got Commissioner Gordon. So we're already starting to set up the lore of Batman. And we have Batman's original costume in this one. Here you see a good representation of that. Actually, a very good representation of it. This is a nice figure. Has wings that are sort of stiff here, so you can actually have them sort of out of ways, and they'll stay put. Now, has his Batarang with him. Batarang hasn't made an appearance yet, but this is the original Batman, and this is the Batman we're going to get for several issues. It's the Batman a lot of people like to sort of harken back to. That this is the true Batman. Well, he's the true Batman for a little while. And just for a bit of comparison, also in Detective number 27, the Crimson Avenger, probably the closest character to Batman we have here. Superman's already being published, so this is about it when it comes to superhero-y kind of characters. Other than them at this time, you have Speed Saunders, Buck Marshall, Bart Regan, Spy, Bruce Nelson, Cosmo, the Phantom in Disguise, Slam Bradley, Scoop Scanlon, Pep Morgan, Tex Thompson, Chuck Dawson. We do have Zatara, who's doing his magic, so he's going to sort of figure into the later DC universe. But what we have are a lot of, federal agents, cowboys, private detectives, things of that nature. So this really is the beginning of the superhero era here with Batman and Superman, and to some degree the Crimson Avenger. Detective Comics number 28. This one is going to have the story of Frenchie Blake's Jewel Gang. You will notice, though, we do not have Batman on the cover, although up top it does say, another issue, another story, adventure of the Batman. So he's becoming important. So in this one, Batman tangles with some jewel thieves. You can see the use of the bat rope here, and him coming off of the one roof to land on the other one. We have, I don't know if it's here. It might be, that might be later. But here we see Frenchie Blake, the guy he's going up against. So far he's gone up against Alfred Stryker, Frenchie Blake. These are just normal crooks. Well, maybe a little more than normal, but normal human beings. We don't have supervillains quite yet, although they're on the way. And so Batman, this one goes pretty quick. He tracks down the jewel theft, confronts Frenchie Blake, beats the crap out of him to get a confession. So yeah, Batman's working outside the law here. He is targeting actual criminals, though. He's not just, grabbing a random guy. And in this one, he leaves a note for Commissioner Gordon, sort of hey, here's a little gift from the Batman to you. Definitely trying to make sure they understand he's on the side of law and order. He's one of the good guys. Don't miss the further adventures of the Batman. You notice sometimes there's a dash in there, sometimes there isn't a dash in there, sometimes it's Batman, sometimes it's the Batman. It's all sort of gelling still. They're not 100% there yet. Detective Comics number 29. So in this one, we get a different writer, and I think it has an impact on the Batman character and the stories that are being told. That writer is Gardner Fox, the great Gardner Fox, creator of the Justice Society, wrote Justice League for a long time, wrote a lot of books. Gardner Fox is extremely well known in comics. So he takes over the writing helm in this issue, and he's going to be writing several issues. And you're going to see we're going to start moving away from garden variety criminals to more supernatural, super science fare. And in this case, Batman is meeting Dr. Death. And I should say Bob Kane is still doing the art at this point. So Dr. Death's big scheme is he's invented this poison. He's going to use it to hold wealthy people for ransom. But what's interesting is right off the bat, he's like, I'm going to have to preemptively kill Batman. This guy's a problem, and I've got to deal with him. And so he goes on to, he sets a trap and puts a thing in the newspaper. Hey, Batman, I challenge you. Batman takes a challenge. You show up to the post office, ask for a letter addressed to John Jones, which I thought was kind of funny. That's going to later be the alias of the Martian Manhunter. And you see Batman at 10 p.m. tonight at Suite B on the 14th floor of the Bentley Apartments. I will commit a murder, and I defy you without the aid of the police to stop me. Okay, of course Batman's going to do it. Here we get a nice view of the utility belt. And the glass pellets of choking gas is what he's adding on. And they did this in some of these earlier stories where they kind of have Batman selecting his gear for this particular adventure. We also see him with these suction gloves and knee pads that's going to help him climb up a wall. Nice little detail. Later on, we're not going to see him necessarily prepping these things. And we get another nice shot of Batman in his costume. You can see this is probably based more off of that image than anything else. And I thought it was striking how similar it really is to Batman from the movie serials. We also get a nice image of Batman with the silhouette. Again, we're going to see that in 1966 Batman a few times. This is actually a funny scene, though, because we see the shadow, then we see Batman and Robin, and he puts his cape down, and then they switch back to this view, and he has the cape up again for the silhouette. A little bit of a mistake. That's fine. So here he's dealing with a guy called Jabba, or I don't know. He's not Jabba the Hutt, though. I do know that. He is the assistant, the henchman of Dr. Death, and he shoots Batman in the chest. Now, it looks like it was actually he grazed him. Batman survives. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, so you see where he's shot. I guess it wasn't in a vital spot, but I thought it was kind of interesting that you actually do get to see him shot and bleeding, and he uses a gas, one of those glass pellets to create a choking fume, and manages to knock Jabba out of the window. Doesn't kill him, but he plants the jewels on him so that he'll lead him back to Dr. Death. And here we see Bruce going to a doctor, how did you shoot yourself when there are no powder marks on your flesh? I do funny things sometimes, Doc. I'll tell you all about it someday. Thanks for everything. Bye. So early on, he doesn't have Alfred yet. So he's got to go to a doctor and try to explain away a bullet hole, which would have probably caused some bigger problems than that in reality. Batman finally does track down Dr. Death, who drops his chemicals that he has, creates a fire, and he stands in the fire laughing, you fool, and is apparently burnt to death. Okay, so again, we have one of Batman's foes dying, not really by Batman's hand. It wasn't like Batman purposely burned the guy to death, couldn't save him. But we do get this little death to Dr. Death. And once again, next issue, Batman, Detective Comics. So, Detective Comics, number 30. We're in August now of 1939. Again, Batman is not on the cover. And we have a new artist, sort of. I think he's doing inks, or maybe he's doing some fill-in stuff. Bob Kane is still credited as an artist in the issue, but we have Sheldon Moldoff. He's going to become a big name in DC Comics over the years. So, new member of the creative team here. Gardner Fox is still writing these. Less than a week ago, the Batman saw his sworn enemy, the grim Dr. Death, burned to ashes in a fire that wrecked an entire house. The Batman prepares to meet Dr. Death again. So what happens is he manages to actually escape. Dr. Death is not killed. Once again, we have these gas vials maybe needed tonight, so we kind of get, again, him sort of, putting together his gear that he's going to need for the adventure. So this one involves blackmail, there's murder, there's purple corpses basically showing up. This is why he suspects Dr. Death is involved. Sounds like something he'd do. Here we have the high-powered auto of Batman. So again, this is the Batmobile at the time. Doesn't really have any distinguishing marks, which if you think about it, he probably actually wouldn't want distinguishing marks at this point, since the police still want him. Dr. Death, his face bandaged. He was obviously burned in the fire. He has a new henchman called Mikhail, who I guess is maybe supposed to be a Cossack. That was one of the tropes back then. Cossacks was a big thing. Mikhail doesn't last real long. As Batman has to swing down at one point, well, has his head out the window, and he snaps his neck. Now, again, not necessarily intentional, although certainly Batman wasn't trying not to kill him. And you notice how the bat cape kind of arcs out, right? This cape won't do that, but it would sort of be going up and then have like a hitch here. So much more like bat wings. I don't think you're going to see much of that after this point. Eventually he catches up with Dr. Death, and you see the reveal. He now has this skull-like face, and all that jazz. And he is arrested. So Dr. Death survives his second encounter with the Batman. So we actually have an arrest. Now, up until this point, we've had Jennings arrested. We've had Stryker killed, knocked into an acid tank. We've had Frenchie Blake arrested. Dr. Death seemingly killed, actually escaped, and then arrested. So the idea that Batman was going around killing all his villains early on is nonsense. He wasn't. And the deaths that have happened so far were not intentional. That wasn't what he was aiming for, but he does play pretty rough. Batman number 31, Batman versus the Vampire. So now we're going to get a supernatural storyline. So we're seeing here the versatility of the Batman character, clearly inspired by the Shadow. And these are similar things that Shadow dealt with. This one has hypnosis in it. That was a big part of the Shadow mythos. So, but we are seeing this is a character. He's gone after normal crooks. He's gone after a evil mad scientist. Now he's going after a vampire. And the mad scientist and vampire are both under Gardner Fox's watch. So he's kind of maybe more so than Bill Finger is bringing in these sort of more fanciful elements into the Batman mythos. Couple nice images, and we're going to see that one of him sort of with the bat wings up. We'll see that again when they tell his origin story. Also notice Through the Dark of a New York Night. So we are 5 months into Batman, and he is still set in New York. You'll find the same thing with Superman. Several months in, and he is still obviously set in Cleveland, Ohio. So if you want to know where these two really are, Batman's in New York, Superman's in Cleveland, Ohio, and those will then gradually turn into Gotham City and Metropolis. But if you're trying to figure out where they're located, that's probably about where they should be. So in this one, he encounters his girlfriend, Julie Madison. So he did have a girlfriend early on. They went for that sort of girlfriend-fiance thing. Eventually, they kind of move away from that. And actually, in the storyline, they kind of end it between him and Julie. They don't just sort of phase her out like she was never there. And he encounters her trying to kill somebody, which is a little surprising to him. She's not really the type. He finds out that she has been hypnotized. And so he puts her in the Batmobile and takes her to go see a doctor. This little scene here, again, kind of reminds me of the scene in Batman 89 with him and Vicky Vale in the Batmobile heading back towards the Batcave. So, she's amazed at what's happened. I like the shot of him. I like the little, very dapper. He's got the bow tie. He's got the pipe going. So they go see this doctor. So the doctor's suggestion to deal with this hypnosis, an ocean voyage to Paris, and perhaps later to Hungary, the land of history and werewolves. If the nation of Hungary does not take that as their official sort of motto for their tourism, the land of history and werewolves, I don't know what I can do to help them. They're missing out on a good thing. But Batman realizes the doctor also seems to be hypnotized. So clearly somebody wants her on this voyage. For what purposes, he doesn't know. But he says, yeah, take the voyage, go for it. And he's going to go ahead and follow in the Autogyro. So we have the beginnings of the famous Batplane. You see him taking off out of the roof of this hangar. I don't think they've really established a Bat Cave at this point, so we don't know exactly where that's going to be. Somewhere on his Wayne Manor. So he follows her to Paris, and on the ship, he has to get involved with a fight with a guy called the Monk. You can also call him the Vampire. So there's a brief fight. Batman is almost, taken out, but he uses, for the first time, his trusty Batarang. So this is the origin of the Batarang, his new weapon, which he thinks will help him on this case. Can we get no? I already tried to put it in this little Batman character's hands, and that was a big, big failure. So we'll put the Batarang back in his utility belt. So first use of the Batarang saves his life. He had the Batplane sort of on autopilot, manages to get back up the rope ladder to the Batplane. In Paris, he finds a warm reception for him, a gorilla, a rather giant gorilla at that. Kind of reminds you of the Murders on the Rue Morgue. Wonder if that was maybe an inspiration there. And here we have the Monk. Another death trap for the Batman. He manages to escape it and manages to, get Julie out of danger. She's fainted. And he sets the controls of the Batplane for Hungary. So first interesting thing about the Autogyro Batplane. It can make an Atlantic crossing. It can also travel most of the way across Europe. So this is like a high-tech device, right? This isn't just your average airplane. So this story is continued in the next issue, and where it's gonna get even more supernatural. We have him landing on this coach, kind of reminiscent of Nosferatu, throwing this pellet of choking glass inside. He finds a woman in there. They're in the Carpathian mountains, probably should really be Carpathian mountains, in Hungary, Hungaria too, Hungaria, which maybe is actually another name for Hungary. So he captures this woman and ends up going to this castle where he's going to confront the Monk. And the Monk has a pit of wolves, so they kind of call them werewolves here. The Monk is clearly, along with this woman, they're clearly vampires. And Batman, he takes out the vampires the way you take out vampires. So isn't it interesting that we're only a few months in, and this is actually an October issue, although undoubtedly would have been on stands before October. And we're taking out vampires. So Batman already, like I said, normal crooks, super science, the supernatural, and I mean very supernatural, werewolves and vampires in Hungary, the land of history and werewolves. And so you see him using a gun here to take out the mortal form of the monk. And so Julie is saved and Batman is happy. And he really is sort of, stuck on Julie at this point, hiding his other identity from her, as one will do. All right. Detective Comics number 33, November 1939. The Batman Wars Against the Dirigible of Doom. So we're back to super science. Bill Finger and Gardner Fox write this story. Bob Kane and Sheldon Moldoff are doing the art. So this is all about world conquest. But first, we get the origin of Batman. 15 years earlier, Thomas Wayne and his wife and son are walking home. Oh, I think you all know the story. It's a stick-up. Batman, Bruce Wayne, sees his parents killed, decides that he's going to one day deal with crime his own way, and he builds up his mind and he builds up his body. Here we get criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot, so my disguise must be able to strike fear into them. And a bat flies through the window. Notice, does not break the glass, because that would have to be one hell of a big bat. And he goes, I shall become a bat. And there we get that image again of Batman on a rooftop. This weird figure of the dark, this avenger of evil, the Batman. It's going to be a weird figure of the dark for just a little bit longer, folks, but not for much longer, to be honest. So, Gotham City, or maybe we're still in New York, they're starting to make that transition, is attacked by a dirigible using death rays. So if you go, Batman is supposed to be a dark crusader who fights against street-level criminals and blah, 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 blah. 2 adventures, he's going up against sort of street-level criminals. Out of, how many have we gone on now? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we're on, no. Yeah, 7. So out of 7 adventures, 2 of them are against normal sort of human crooks at this point. The rest of them, a little bit crazier. So, yeah, that's part of the Batman mythos right from the beginning. And here we see Batman going into his little secret hideout. It's not the Batcave yet. It's a room. He's got files in there. He's got a little laboratory and stuff for the things that he's doing. So, but we're starting to build up the mythos. Now my silk rope and I'm ready. So once again, we're watching him put together his gear for the adventure to deal with this death ray wielding dirigible. Who is our villain this time? Karl Kruger, who wants to be dictator of the world. This one kind of reminds you of, is it called Master? I think it's Master of the World, Jules Verne with the airship, etc. So I think we're borrowing a little bit of that one. Just like Star Wars borrows from a lot of sources, so does Batman. And ultimately, you get something sort of new and original. I like the fact that he has a picture of himself, or maybe that was supposed to be a picture. Oh, no, that might be a picture of Napoleon, obviously his hero. So, little guy dressed up as Napoleon with a dirigible shooting death rays. Real street level crime. So Batman gets in there. He starts tracking the guy down. Almost, killed by Kruger with a shot in the back while he's taking an axe to, I think it was the dirigible. And then uses his death ray, which looks a lot like a spotlight, to vaporize Batman. Holy mackerel, Batman is dead. Well, no. It was a good thing my bulletproof vest. Okay, so now we know he does have a bulletproof vest. Stop those bullets. Just a few flesh wounds. Lost some blood, though. What did he do? He had taken down one of the henchmen of Kruger. He quickly changed clothes with him, and Kruger then vaporized his own guy. I'm trying to picture, you could make a whole comedy out of Bruce Wayne trying to get out of his Batman outfit, strip this other guy, put his outfit on, put the Batman outfit, which you know is not going to go on a person very easily. There's going to be a lot more than you want. And he supposedly manages to do this in a very short period of time. So if Batman has a superpower, it is changing his clothes very rapidly. Takes to the Batplane to go after the Dirigible, makes perfect sense, and manages to blow it to bits. But Kruger gets away in a little prop plane, and Batman has to use bat rope, gets a hold of it, climbs up onto the wing. This time I'll make sure you die. It doesn't work. In fact, Batman manages to crash it. So Karl Kruger killed in a plane crash caused by Batman. Look, this dude was using death rays on Gotham City, so I think we can agree Batman sort of stuck on that one, kind of had to do it. Detective Comics number 34. We're in December of 1939 here. We got a few more issues to go. Again, Batman not on the cover there. Batman is in Paris. This is a Gardner Fox. No Bill Finger involved in this one. Bob Kane, Sheldon Moldoff. Bruce Wayne is visiting Paris, thinks he sees a friend, goes and finds him, turns him around. The man has no face. This is Gardner Fox, folks. Gardner Fox gets into the weird and creepy stuff, and I love it. He ends up hooking up with this woman who is, there's attempted murders of her by the Apaches. Now, the Apaches was a sort of name for street gangs of Paris back in the day. Here's you see an image. Now, this is obviously pre-1930s, but that's where you get the Apache dance, which is like a simulation of a guy beating up a woman. It was a different time. So he ends up finding out this woman is the sister of the guy with no face. They were at a masquerade ball. This Duc d'Orter took a shine to Marie, and when Charles was against it, captured him and used this ray to basically burn away his face in this dungeon. So, okay, super science once again. This I love. He says, well, I'll take care of this. And he leaves and comes back as Batman. And so these two should know his identity, although they make it seem later on in the story like they don't know his identity. That's kind of a mistake. There should be two Parisians who know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Here's the guy we're dealing with, the Duc d'Orter. Nasty customer to be sure. We get another death trap, the spinning wheel that Batman is tied to. They did something kind of similar in one of the 66 episodes with the Riddler. He manages to foil it, finds this room of flowers with people's faces, which apparently this is what the ray is doing. But I love this. Am I going mad? You might, in fact, be going mad. And they never really delve that far into it. Ends up using the Autogyro to land on the roof of the car of the Duke who's escaping, and this causes a car accident, careens off this bridge, and the Duc d'Orter is killed. So we add another body to the Batman death toll. But again, this is a pretty nasty customer, and Batman wasn't necessarily trying to kill him. And so here we have, you've been wonderful to us. Mere words can't express how much we appreciate it. But won't you tell us who you are? You saw Bruce Wayne walk out and Batman walk back in. Again, the quick change. Apparently these two aren't that bright. But hey, that's okay. Batman gets the cover. Detective number 35, January of 1940. The Case of the Ruby Idol. This is kind of an interesting one. It's a little odd. That actually kind of looks like he's taking on the Duc d'Orter right there. that's not who he's dealing with in this issue. Still a pretty grim-looking Batman, but you notice starting to change from the original Batman look to what he's going to ultimately become by the end of this year. Although this is a even happier looking version. He stays a little bit darker than this. But we're already starting to make that transition between these two characters. We're also going to start seeing a transition of the style of Batman. And we'll get to that a little bit more. Great image, though, of Batman with the gun. We don't see that very often, and you won't see it almost at all after this point. So in this one, a guy named Linux gives this idol of this supposed Hindu god called Killa, which seems like they just reverse the A and I in Kali. It's a ruby idol. And as a result, these Hindu Thugee go after this guy to get their idol back and to punish him. You see them there for Killa. Killa is avenged, as they shoot this guy. Batman gets involved. Ultimately, he's going to discover the involvement of a Chinese fella from Chinatown. So we do have Chinatown early on in Batman. And by the way, another major trope of the 30s and 40s with detectives, the whole Chinatown thing. It shows up everywhere. Guy named Sin Fang, who we're ultimately going to find out is actually Linux in disguise. I like this. Oh, you broke my arm. Oh, I mean, yeah, look at what he's flipping him over that way. And by the way, really high ceilings. Very nice. A lot of space. Pain in the ass to heat and cool, but still. The Thugee come in. Batman takes out, he's fighting them. He's fighting the other guy. Here's where he confronts Sin Fang. This is where he goes and visits Wong, the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, a wise and honest man, and he finds out information about the one called Sin Fang. So he goes after him. Now look at this one image, though. You kind of see a smile on Batman's face. So again, also a different color of the utility belt. So again, we're starting to get a little more into that revised, more kid-friendly version of Batman. He ultimately knocks Linux out a window, and Linux is killed. So we get another death for the Batman. Didn't necessarily try to knock him out a window. It's just how it goes. And Batman, again, never shows remorse for killing these crooks. So he's not setting out to kill him, but he's not really very sad that he does kill him. Batman, again, gets the cover. We see him kicking a Chinese guy. Obviously, again, the Chinatown trope was huge. He's not going to be doing that in this issue. And this is an important one. No, I should say last issue was written by Bill Finger. This issue also written by Bill Finger. And we're going to get another supervillain. So we've seen Dr. Death, who sort of fits that bill. We've seen the Duke d'Orterre, kind of fits that bill too. He had the face removing ray. Karl Kruger with a death ray. We're going to get a character, though. Those are characters we're not really going to see again in the series. I mean, unless they popped up and I'm unaware of it. Oh, and sorry, we had the monk who was a vampire. This issue, we're going to get our first villain who sort of survives into later years of Batman. Although he's going to take a break after this year. And that is Hugo Strange. And I should mention, written by Bill Finger, Jerry Robinson assisting on the art, Bob Kane. I don't know if he was just inking or if he was doing some of the drawing as well. So we get our first Jerry Robinson piece of work for Batman. He'll do a lot of work later. Some really, really good work. Batman up on the rooftops, sees what's happening below, gets involved as he does. A notebook Well, police, the Batman, he's killed someone, shoot him down. Again, did police do that in real life? I don't know. But in movies, police would just pull that gun and start shooting if they even suspected you were involved in a crime. So they think Batman's murdered somebody and he's stealing his wallet, and they go ahead and start shooting. So from Bruce Wayne, we learn Professor Hugo Strange, the most dangerous man in the world, scientist, philosopher, and a criminal genius. Kind of makes you think a little bit of Moriarty with Sherlock Holmes. So another literary, maybe inspiration here. This is going to be, for the time, the arch enemy of the Batman, because he's a criminal genius, just like Batman is as a genius detective. And you see him even say, the greatest organizer of crime in the world. Again, very Moriarty. And here's Hugo Strange himself. A malignant smile crosses his face as he broods over the many evil schemes that surge through his brilliant but distorted brain. And so he basically is going to kidnap a scientist who has a machine that creates fog. He's going to be able to use the fog to commit all sorts of thefts, obviously money that he's going to need for his criminal enterprises. We get a nice image here of Batman taking out a room full of thugs. The art in the early issues, it's not the greatest. There's slightly better art in some of the other Detective comic features, but it's actually pretty on par for the time period. Batman's going to get better art as we go, including from Bob Kane. His art's going to improve over the course of this series, but not so much over the course of this year. So Batman leaping into action against all these thugs, taken out by a hit from behind. That's going to be a trope for Batman and Robin in the future. Get in, beating up crooks, hit from behind, and they're out. And the crooks decide not to kill them. So we have him sort of strung up. Hugo Strange goes in, whipping him. Whips him good. He manages to get away. They get into a fight. And here we see Hugo Strange, criminal genius, but he can fight. And he gets Batman down and he's choking him. Batman manages to flip him over and start socking him in the jaw, and ultimately manages to capture and arrest him. So we don't kill this guy off. We're going to keep him alive. And technically Dr. Death is still alive as well. Kruger went down. The vampire went down. So not all the potential arch villains are being killed off. We get the classic trope, though. The guy in the jail cell. We'll see a lot of that. We will see some of that, including in the future. There is no doubt that Professor Hugo Strange is put away for a long time to come. I wonder what's going to happen there. Detective Comics number 37, March of 1940. So we are in 1940 now. We have been for the last couple issues. The Screaming House by Bill Finger, art by Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson. And this is going to bring some espionage into it. Remember the time period. Pearl Harbor hasn't happened yet. The United States is not in the war, but Europe is at war. And we do get stories already at this point of spy rings in the United States. Because I think a lot of people thought we were going to get involved at some point. So spy rings, sabotage, etc. So he hears somebody screaming his head off in a house. He goes in, still looking a little bit grim, but you kind of have that face just a little bit, right? You notice also the ears do definitely change size over the course of these. So Batman artists, do what you like, do what feels good to you. He interrupts these guys torturing this fella. He breaks it up, get a nice face kick in there, but then the guy he saves knocks him on the head, pistol whips him, knocks him out. Sorry, buddy. Why the heck would he do that? So he gets some clues that lead him to this grocery run by a guy named Elias Turg, and figures out that there's a spy ring basically going on. And the guy that he saved, supposedly a U.S. agent, Turns out he actually isn't. But we get some more fighting. Here's a nice one. We see puts the place into darkness, and he's got infrared goggles, basically, so he can see in the dark. So again, Batman with the gadgets. This is already happening. He finds this guy. Sorry, I stole the phone number from Turg. I'm not really a spy. Needed money. Get them for good old USA. Don't worry, Joey. I'll get them. So Batman basically takes out probably some Nazi spies, since they don't look like they're Japanese. And the Nazis were the bigger villain at the time. After Pearl Harbor, that's going to change. But basically, they do get a hold of Batman. They tie him, throw him in the river. He manages to get free. Confronts the head of the spy ring, Count Groot, or Groot. We get a little sword play here, and ultimately, Count Groot goes down dead. It is better he should die. He might have sent thousands of others to their death on a battlefield if his plans had been successful. This has been a queer case, from the old house to foreign agents and to the death of its head. Yes, a very queer case. Here's where it all starts to change. Detective Comics, number 38, April of 1940. Robin the Boy Wonder by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Yeah, we got a Robin figure too with that Golden Age Batman. Although they make him, frankly, too tall. Because, interesting note, Robin is 7 years old. So when you're watching Robin battle these guys, he will turn 8 in a few issues. They do a birthday thing. Picture your average second or third, well, maybe not your average second or third grader. He was an acrobat. He does some training. But picture a kid that small. And Batman, he's in his 20s, I'm assuming, right around here, goes into battle with this kid, and Robin does some damage at that age. Typically, we see a much older Robin in live action. I think it would be a blast to see a live action show that gives us, like, essentially an 8-year-old Robin. And we'll watch people freak out. But you will notice that now that transformation is getting much further along to the happy Batman from, the grim, gritty. Everything's opposite when I'm doing this in the camera, so it takes a minute. From the grim, gritty Batman. So again, the Dark Avenger Batman that some people like to say is the true Batman lasts for about 11 months. And then you're not going to see him again, really, for about 20 years. Maybe more than 20 years. Batman definitely makes a transition from the Dark Avenger to the sort of smiling, adventuring, dashing Caped Crusader pretty early on in the series. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But so we're introducing Robin, and I think most people know Robin's origin. He was part of the Flying Graysons. His parents are killed in an accident that's not really an accident, because what they're going up against are racketeers who, it's kind of a protection racket. They're going after the circus, pay us or people are going to get hurt, kind of a thing. So Batman shows up and he says, look, man, let's bring these murderers of your parents to justice. And you do notice also, Robin does not look quite like a 7 or 8 year old there, height-wise. But that's the age they give him at a certain point. Maybe a little bit more there. Teaches them jujitsu, etc. Why Robin? To appeal to kids. They get to imagine themselves adventuring with Batman. And that's really the idea behind it. And Robin is going to easily be the most successful sidekick that we ever get in comics. No doubt about it. The first, well, I won't say the first. It's possible there was somebody else before that, but more or less the first and the best. Immediately puts Robin to work as a newsie so they can track down who's responsible for killing his parents. It's going to turn out to be Boss Zuko. Really good looking guy. It's like steam coming out of his collar. He's getting pretty angry because things ain't working the way he wants them to. Batman gets involved, as he often does. Heads are cracked. Tables are thrown. A roulette table in this case. I like the note that he sends him. Puts a little bat symbol on the bottom. Get out of town, Zuko. I know you were also trying to get protection money from the camp. Camp, is that it? That is putting up the company maybe that's putting up the cannon building. So he's trying to get protection money from this construction site. We're going to get a battle between Batman and Robin and Boss Zuko and his men on this building that's in the middle of being built. Robin has the slingshot. That's going to be a big part of Robin for a few issues and then pretty much goes away. Reminiscent, though, of the later Carrie Kelly Robin from Batman The Dark Knight Returns and her slingshot. So we get some great stuff. Fights up here. But again, remember, that's a 7-year-old who is flipping guys. That's why they went for the jiu-jitsu thing. They used the jiu-jitsu sort of angle with Honey West as well when they did the TV show. Obviously, children, women are at a disadvantage fighting against large men. Jiu-jitsu is all about using your opponent's weight against them. So that becomes the magic bullet for fiction for letting women and children beat up guys, essentially. So anyhow, Batman gets this one guy to sign a confession. Zuko pushes him off the building and kills the guy. But I had the boy bring a camera just in case. Snapped a picture of Zuko doing it. You're going to the electric chair. Does he go to the electric chair? We don't know. He is arrested in this one. He is not killed. But he very likely would go to the electric chair soon after. And here we have the smiling Bruce Wayne, smiling Dick Grayson. Thrills, and more thrills is what that amazing character, the Batman, and that sensational find of 1940, Robin, boy wonder of the comic strips, give you in every issue with their astounding exploits. Watch for next month's thrilling episode. So, we have definitely turned a sort of corner here. And I think what you're seeing is Batman going from being primarily inspired by the Shadow to taking more inspiration from Dick Tracy, also extremely popular at the time. And you kind of get it. Dick Tracy's got some gadgets going. Dick Tracy has a boy sidekick, Junior Tracy. Also, Dick Tracy is a little bit more kid-friendly, family-friendly. And you're going to start seeing more of Batman's crazy-looking villains and rogues gallery showing up, much like in Dick Tracy. So did they sort of milk the Shadow thing for all it was worth? Or did they say, maybe we need to make this more kid-friendly? Don't know, but you could definitely see that's the transition. So now we're going to actually go back a month to Batman #1. Technically, I think it was out in March, but you read the stories, Robin is already the boy wonder, and we hadn't technically seen him become Robin yet. So I think you have to put Detective 38 before Batman #1, continuity-wise, in as much as there is any continuity in these characters. So first thing, we again get the legend of Batman and how he came to be. It's a retelling of the origin story, slightly different art, slightly better art, but we still do get the one really famous image of Batman on the rooftop, but we see him, the science, we see him lifting weights, etc., and him pondering what he's going to do. So Batman #1, clearly this was intended maybe, for readers who hadn't caught all the Detective Comics stuff to get their first introduction to the character. Although notably, they don't reintroduce Robin, his origin. Now we get the Joker. And they must have known that Joker was going to be a big deal because the Joker is going to return at the end of this issue. So it's not like it was, hey, everybody loves Joker, let's use him again. They use him twice in the same issue. So we get our introduction to the Joker, and it's a great introduction to the character. No origin story at this point. There never should be an origin story at this, in my opinion. They hear on the radio, people are being threatened with death. They call in the police to protect them. They're surrounding the guy. Nobody can get to him. And all of a sudden, they get the smile, the death grin. So that Joker gas is there from the very, very, very beginning of the character. And we get the famous Joker card. So the Joker lore is being built very rapidly. Here we see the Joker for the first time, not smiling. He's getting his, his revenge on people, and et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, Batman, of course, meets up with the Joker. We have an exciting fight on a car. Joker gets a good punch in. I'm going to kill you. Knocks him off the bridge. He also manages to take out Robin from behind as he's snooping in this house. But Batman is going to save the day. And this is just before Joker was going to inject the venom into Robin. And ultimately, Robin, again, we get a construction site, and Robin kicks Joker off of this building. But he isn't killed. He is arrested. He goes to jail again. We get the famous, get me out of here. The Amazing Batman, America's most famous adventure strip character, with that sensational new discovery, that laughing young daredevil, Robin the Boy Wonder. So here we go. So Batman and Robin versus the Joker, and Robin instrumental in taking the Joker out. So Robin's not going to be just a silly character who doesn't really do anything of value. We now get, I should mention, Bill Finger, Bob Kane, I believe, do all these stories. The Giants of Hugo Strange. So Hugo Strange is back. He is ejecting convicts with some serum that's turning them into these 10-foot tall man monsters, setting them loose on Gotham City. He wants revenge. Here we see the man monsters captured Batman. They're holding him up. He looks little. Hugo Strange still has the whip. Knocks Hugo Strange out of a window. I tell you what, if you're going to fight Batman, make sure there's not a window behind you. Kind of like in that bit from the Twisted Sister video where the dude keeps getting thrown out of. Yeah, don't stand in front of a window if you're going to fight the Batman. And so Batman's got to take on these man monsters, basically. Gets the Batplane. He has a machine gun. Okay, so Batman 89, Batplane or Batwing with machine guns. That's actually it's not off. It's part of the lore of the Batman. But you see him saying, as much as I hate to take human life, I'm afraid this time it's necessary. Ultimately ends up taking on one of the man monsters on top of a tall building using gas pellets. Gee, what does that sound like? Obviously, it's a reference to King Kong. So Batman borrows liberally from other properties. And but he does obviously take that last man monster out. There goes the last of the monsters. Yet I have a feeling that the biggest monster of them all, Professor Hugo Strange, still lives. Perhaps we shall meet again. Perhaps. Great image. So Hugo Strange still probably in circulation. This issue also has a picture of Bob Kane at his art table drawing. It is not the most flattering picture of Bob Kane ever made. But reproducing photos on newsprint was always a problem back in the day for comic books. Even into the 70s and 80s, it really doesn't work. So we get another story now, another important story in the lore of Batman. Batman's putting Robin in charge of a case. And he's supposed to go on to a cruise ship as not a waiter, I'm trying to think, kind of a bellboy, I don't know what the term would have been, to keep his eyes on a mysterious jewel thief called the Cat. And so they think they're being boarded at one point by the Coast Guard. It turns out to be these crooks. Robin gets involved. So once again, they're going, holy crap, that 7-year-old just knocked out Bob. They throw Robin overboard. He changes into costume underwater. And they do a whole big fight scene. He gets onto a boat. Batman's there. There's crooks. And so they do this whole fight scene between him and the crooks. And the crooks end up pulling a gun on Robin. And I love this little bit here. Well, kids, there's your proof. Crooks are yellow without their guns. Don't go around admiring them. Rather, do your best in fighting them and all their kind. Love that bit. Kind of reminds you of Adam West. And by the way, we get the Batman eyebrows there on the mask. But of course, Robin still managed to beat up the crooks when they're disarmed. So he ultimately ends up tackling this old woman, which seems like a really screwed up thing to do. But of course, the old woman is really a young woman. She is the cat. And we're going to see the cat again in the coming years as she becomes Catwoman. And they do actually reveal her at least supposed identity at one point, and it is not Selena Kyle. She's kind of a millionaire playboy playgirl socialite herself, and gets involved in crime. That probably gets retconned later on. So Robin's really proud. He's knocked out the people, and she's like, Batman, what do you say? Sorry, your proposition tempts me, but we work on different sides of the law. Let's go. Oh, that's very Adam West and Julie Newmar. But what I love is, as Batman and Robin are leaving in the boat, and I think Robin's, maybe steering at this point, maybe not. Lovely girl, what eyes. Say, mustn't forget I've got a girl named Julie. Oh well, she still had lovely eyes. Maybe I'll bump into her again sometime. So the Batman Catwoman sort of romance right from the get-go, and I like Robin. Like what's going on here? So great. We now have, in our first year, we do have some recurring villains showing up. Hugo Strange, the Joker, and Catwoman have all made their appearance. We'll get Penguin soon enough and some more. But we're starting on that Dick Tracy Rogues Gallery sort of path at this point. Final story of Batman's first year, the return of the Joker. Joker is going to escape. He starts doing what he does best, killing people with the Joker gas. Once again, Batman has to go after him. Gets the best of Batman, almost removes the mask to see who's underneath there. Is this the end of the mighty Batman? Well, of course it's not. He manages to get away, crashing through a window. So, again, Joker's kind of doing the same thing he did in the first part, threatening people, using the gas to get them. And so Bruce Wayne, talking with Commissioner Gordon, says, well, he likes jewels. Let's set a trap in the newspapers of a jewel that he could steal, which does lure him in. There's Robin seeing him as he makes his way for the roof, shooting as he goes. We get a Batman-Joker fight. Joker pulls a knife on Batman and ends up stabbing himself. Joker, this time you couldn't win. The cards were stacked against you. And Joker is killed. Well, there's actually another panel where a guy goes, wait a minute, he's not dead. Nah, they knew what they had there. All right, Batman Year One. What we see is really a transition from a character who is based on, inspired by, kind of stealing from The Shadow. And by the end of that first year, he's making a transition to a more Dick Tracy style character. We're going to see that in the art. We're going to see that in the villains. We're going to get a lot more crooks and gangsters. We're actually going to get less supernatural and super science as we go forward, but not none of it. So we're setting the foundations of the character. We got some good villains introduced. We see that Batman can tangle with all sorts of different foes. Batman does some crime fighting in Paris, in Hungary. In the coming couple years, he's going to go out west a few times. Because cowboy movies are big, so we got to bring a little cowboy into Batman as well. He's a very versatile character. A very versatile character. So if we look at the fate of Batman's foes, ultimately 8 of them are arrested, 2 escape, 6 of them do die, and generally not because Batman is trying to kill them. So there is the Dark Avenger atmosphere early on, but don't take it too far. Here you see the villains that Batman manages to kill over his first year. Again, a couple of them accidental. All of them definitely villains, though, too. They've all definitely shown themselves to be bad guys. He isn't just making assumptions, and he doesn't have an itchy trigger finger. We'll put it that way. So there we go. First year of Batman. The second superhero really to ever exist after Superman, when you get right down to it. And I can say, having now read the first year of Superman comics, Batman is by far the more entertaining character. Batman is also by far the less vigilante, loose cannon character. Superman in his first year really straddles the line between hero and villain. Batman works outside the law, but always after criminals. And he's actually kind of the more heroic character than Superman early on. And I can see why he becomes as popular as he does. So hopefully you had fun doing this little retrospective of Batman's first year in existence as we go from the Dark Knight to the Caped Crusader. Batman wears many different looks over the years, many different kinds of villains, an extremely versatile character, and really one of the great characters of American pop culture. Let me know in the comments what you think about old Batman in this first year of adventures. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, please like, perhaps subscribe, maybe think of sharing with a friend. Really would help me out, and I would be very appreciative of that. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Read some Batman. Get in touch with the golden age of the character. Very entertaining stories. And I will see you hopefully soon in Dad's Den